if you have a super heavy flow, then this review is going to be very interesting for you. Hi and welcome to Period Nirvana. My name is Kim Rosas and I am your host here on this weird part of the internet where I talk about reusable period products. And that's pretty much all I talk about. Period Nirvana is my educational platform, so this channel and my website where I help you learn how to use menstrual products and which ones to pick. Specifically, I have an amazing quiz on periodnirvana.com that asks you the right questions to point you to the right menstrual cup or menstrual disc for you. I also started Period.Shop, which is the URL, and that is where I curate an amazing selection of really great menstrual products. So if you're in the market for reusable products, check out Period.Shop. We ship to the US, so unfortunately if you're not in the US, we can't help you out. If you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Okay, so this review is one that has been requested quite a lot, and while I am not completely qualified to test out the Merula XL, which is the highest capacity menstrual cup on the market, I did want to test it out for other things like comfort, just kind of give you my impression of the cup itself. And I've tried it before, but I wanted to refresh my memory before I filmed a video. So on this most recent cycle, I did use it for part of that time. Every cycle that I have is quite important. I need to try quite a few things. So I did not use it for the full cycle. First, a little bit about the company. Merula is a German brand. They make the Merula XL and they make the Merula one size. And their one size is kind of one size because it is short, but it has a long body. And the design does, work for both sizes in theory, right? But XL is XL not because of the size of the diameter. It's called the XL because it is a high capacity cup. So if you have a monstrously heavy flow, this is one that is often recommended for you if you're asking about this in communities or if you're taking the Period Nirvana quiz. So in the box, you will get a coordinating pouch for every color. This is their ice box, and this is the ice pouch. So it's like a very pretty lace design pouch, and everything is coordinating. So if you got the Merula Midnight, then you would get the Midnight pouch to go with it. Every single color they sell has a special coordinating pouch. It is made from medical grade silicone. It is a firmer cup for both the one size and the XL, and the body is quite firm as well as the rim, and it has this very unique ladder stem. And of course, the reason it holds so much is because it has this very, very round base. So the diameter is not much different from the diameter of other size 2 cups, believe it or not. I know it looks massive, but the diameter is very, very close, a little bit on the higher end of the size 2s or the size large menstrual cups that are out there. But instead of it tapering down like the Salt or one of the other bullet-shaped cups, it is a round base. So what is interesting is that even though it is off-putting in the fact that it says it's an extra large, which I think most of us don't really want to consider buying an extra large cup because we don't want to have an extra large vagina, it is all about capacity. So I feel like there's a little bit of a German to English thing where, the XL was not something they considered would be a name that's kind of off-putting, but at least here, to me, I find something being called XL for your vagina for a utility purpose not good. It's time. Like I said, I did try the XL on my period, so I do have some footage to share from that. So I have the Merula XL in, and at first it was a lot of pressure and the urge to pee, and then I've peed a couple of times and it was like very slow. Now, when you have something that is a larger body, if it doesn't taper down, that can cause more contact in the body. And so for me, and I assume for other people, at least some of them, that leads to a pressure or slowing down the urine stream, which is exactly what happened to me. I feel like I really have to pee. I could definitely feel the cup when it was in me. I could tell when I went to the bathroom that it was a slower urine stream, but I was very impressed that the ladder stem was comfortable enough to keep on, even though I do have a lower cervix, especially at the beginning of my cycle. It leaked a little bit for me, And I have mentioned that cups are not as foolproof for me as menstrual discs these days. So when I test a cup and it leaks for me, I often think, okay, well, if I had more time, I probably could troubleshoot it and get the leaks to go away. But menstrual discs always, no matter which one I'm trying, with the exception of Ziggy so far, they've just been very leak-free for me. I just reviewed the Cora disc, which is brand new, and that was out of the gate completely leak-free for me. There's just something about my anatomy that works really well for discs, and over time has worked less well for cups. And so that's another option if you are looking for a very high capacity menstrual cup that will hold a lot of blood. If you aren't so keen on the Merula XL as a concept because you think it might be too large or feel, make pressure in your body, you could look at something else like a menstrual disc, and this is the Nixit. It has a more flexible rim and it holds 70 milliliters. So even though it will squish, so some of the capacity will be lost in the way you wear the disc, most likely, and it will be messy to remove, unlike a cup. I say I don't get messy when I remove cups, and I really mean it. Like, that's it. I just put it away, so I didn't wipe my fingers. And so there's like a tiny bit of something on my nail. That's it. It is another option for you. So I like to guide people to whatever they think is going to feel best for their bodies. That said, there are so many people who could not live without the Merula XL. This is something I see all the time in the menstrual cup communities. Same for the Merula one size, because it is a heavier period option for a low cervix, which is almost unheard of. So I know I'm focusing on the XL for the review. I have reviewed in another channel the Merula one size, and that was the same issue for me. It did give me pressure. It made me feel like I had to urinate. So it's not something I would pick for myself, and I don't need it. I don't have a monster heavy period. Although I will say, fun fact, this is my first period after my second Pfizer dose. So I'm several weeks, I'm like 3 weeks post-dose 2, and it was a heavier period and it was a longer period, but I'm not in any way discouraging someone from getting it. I think it's a miracle that I have it in my body, and I'm thrilled. But it was a side effect that some people have noticed, that they had a heavier period or started sooner, or for people with an IUD, they might have had a period when they usually would not. So it is something to look out for, but certainly this is not in any way trying to tell you not to get one. I just think it's an interesting thing, a side effect that has happened, and then not everyone has experienced. And mine was truly just a slightly heavier than normal period, and it was heavier for longer than it would normally be. But I was still not able to fill this thing. So it was not that heavy. And for people who do fill them, I am so amazed that is something that happens, because it means you have a very heavy period. Fit for a cup is the most important thing. So do not just buy a Merula XL because you have a very heavy period. Buy a Merula XL because you have a very heavy period and it is a good fit for you, both in the length, so you can look at the measurements on Period Nirvana's cup chart, both with the stem or without, depending on what you need, but also the diameter of the cup itself. And again, it is more in line with size 2, so someone who might be a better fit for a size 1 probably wouldn't be a good candidate for this because it might be too large. Insertion was more of a thing because it is a larger cup and it is a thicker silicone. And so I did have a little bit of a struggle getting it in, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it was a little bit harder for me to get in than slimmer and less thick silicone cups. And then, of course, this being larger adds to some of that sizing here. You can try the labia fold, which does get it a little bit narrower at the base. There are other menstrual cup options for a heavier period. If the Merula XL does look too large for you, there are some other menstrual cup options. One is the Tieutcup. This is their large, and this is their small. And these are a more bulbous base, but the rim is a little bit narrower, so it actually has a narrower rim than it does a base. And it does not hold as much as the Merula XL, but it is going to have a longer wear time for anyone who has a heavier period compared to all of the size 1s and size 2s. So if you're a size 1, you get longer wear time with the Tieut small. If you're a size 2, you get longer wear time with the Tieut 2 than you would a traditional cup, but it is going to have a little bit of a smaller profile for you than the Merula XL. If you have a low cervix and you have a heavy flow, this is not going to fit, so you do have the alternative of the Merula OS, the one size, and that has a basically round body and the same ladder stem, so it can still work if you have a longer cervix, but it's virtually always purchased by people who have a low cervix and a heavy flow, who then trim off the stem. Both these products, the Merula XL and the one size, they have no suction holes. So one complaint that a lot of people have, I didn't have it myself. I didn't have an issue removing the Merula XL or the Merula one size for that reason, although I've had that struggle with other cups. It not having suction holes can make it harder to remove because it makes it harder to break the suction to release and move down. That's also something to consider. If you have an IUD in place, you can use menstrual cups with IUDs. With caution, making sure you break the suction and making sure you're not grabbing your strings. But if you have a heavier period and you have a low cervix, or if you simply have a heavier period and you have an IUD, you may want to use a menstrual disc because it is suction free, so it does feel a little bit more like less of a risk when it comes to removing that product because there is no suction. And I would encourage you, I just wrote an article and looked at this topic, IUDs and cups, and you can just go to periodnirvana.com/IUD, and I'll leave a link in the video description for you as well. So there are lots of options, but Merula XL is certainly the cup with the highest capacity that exists on the market right now. And it was definitely something I wanted to carry at Period.Shop because I want to make sure all needs are met. And even though the cup did not work that great for me and it wasn't something I would personally choose, it's also not something that I need. So I'm not going to spend the time troubleshooting to make it work because I don't have to. But there are people who really need the capacity to get through the day, and sometimes it's a good fit for them right off the bat, and sometimes they really need to spend some time getting it to work for them, trying different angles and folds, trying it with the stem and without, and getting that product to work for them, because going with a regular cup, or certainly with pads or tampons, and having to change every 1 to 3 hours is really a hard way to live a life. People have periods this heavy, and I completely feel for them and wonder how they do it sometimes because I don't have that experience. And, it definitely affects your daily life. So when you can find an option that will give you another few hours before you go to the bathroom and have to empty that product, that is a game changer. And if you want to look into discs, I do have a lot of videos about how to use them. Some discs do auto dump, which is an additional benefit. If you have a very heavy flow, it can tilt, empty the contents while you're on the bathroom, while you're using the bathroom, and then often go back into place. So that's another option. So that's that review for me. I know it wasn't glowing, and I know it wasn't fun or exciting like the L&E cup. Nothing broke, so that's nice. But that's it. It is what it is. Sometimes reviews are just boring. I'm trying to spice it up with my smile. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, video reviews and information about cups and discs. You can also join the Period Nirvana community on Facebook. You can search for that, or I'll link it in the video description. That's a place where you can troubleshoot and talk about menstrual cups and discs and related period topics in a private setting with other members. You can find me on Instagram at Period Nirvana. You can also find me on TikTok, same thing, at Period Nirvana, where I do short, bite-sized educational videos and reviews on that social network. And that's it. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Whew. This is why I want to juggle, because Merulas would be the perfect item to juggle. I'm gonna learn one day. Buy a Merula XL because you have a very